So, welcome everyone again to the day two of the NITW Bio Network hosted the Biotechnology Alumni Meet. We had a very nice discussion on the day one where a lot of people, especially from the first batches like 2010 and all the way till 2014 and 2015 batches pass outs were there. We had a pretty good discussion where I'm pretty sure most of the people who were participating took a lot of things from home, took a lot of things home, and definitely it would be helpful and not only for the juniors for the second third years but also for us actually because we actually asked a lot of questions that day. So before I get started with before I get started with today's event, which consists of main sections from the entrepreneurship section, then a little bit we'll touch in the finance, both finance and management. Furthermore, the main focus, which I would say rather today looks like, is the IT sector and the software industries, which are both abroad and India. And towards the end of the day, we will also discuss a little bit about the academic research in Canada specifically. Before getting started, one thing about maybe the guys who have missed it yesterday is that we would like to introduce the website of BioNetwork, and we would be very happy if you could have a look at that. And the link has been posted in the chat. Please have a look. Please connect with us. We have the channels like the Facebook social media pages, the Instagram social media pages on the in the website itself. Furthermore, we've also started the LinkedIn group. Be connected with the community, and you can also become a part of that group. And more importantly, along with the tab, we also have a YouTube channel on which we are conducting certain interviews, like face-to-face interview, something like Breakfast with Champions, but with the champions of our department who have either gotten, let's say, Corona scholarship or the GATE or through the Indian Academy of Science scholarship and things like that. And we will be posting every week a new video on that. Okay, so with that, let's get started. I would like to invite for today's first session, entrepreneurship, I would like to invite Sanket Pathore, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And he is a graduate of the batch of 2020. And currently he's a decision analyst associate at the ZS Associates. So Sanket, it's all over to you.
Thanks, Ashwin. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the second day of virtual NITW Biotechnology Alumni Meet. I'm Sanket, and I will be moderating this entrepreneurship session today. So I also welcome two of our amazing facilitators, that is Chanukya Patnaik and Surbi Goa. Let me introduce our speakers first. Our first speaker would be Chanukya Patnaik. He is co-founder of DeFi and a graduate of 2014 batch. Our second speaker would be Surbi. Surbi graduated from 2018 batch and is currently co-founder of Saltezy. So participants, the rules are pretty simple. First, our facilitators will share their journeys with us, and then we'll have a question and answers session followed by that. So if you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the chat box, or you can even raise your hands. So I guess we are good to start. Chanukya, I request you to please start the session.
Yeah, sure. I hope I'm visible and I'm audible to everyone. But yeah, with that, I'll get started. Thanks a lot, Sanket, for the quick intro, and probably I won't spend much time in my introduction. Probably I'll talk a little more about my journey. So as Sanket mentioned, I'm a 2014. I belong to 2014 batch, and it's been quite some time, probably close to 7 years that I left college. But a lot of things that what I am right now are probably a lot of roots have been established while I was at NIT Warangal, be it in terms of exposure or be it in terms of getting aware of entrepreneurship or a bunch of other things, right? What I'm doing right now, a lot of things have sowed their seeds back in my back in the college. So that's one of the good thing that has happened in my entire life. I think I'm thankful to NIT Warangal for what it was. So definitely I wouldn't really categorize any college or anything as tier 1, tier 2, but it all depends on the people that you are surrounded with, right? So I thank my seniors, juniors, and a lot of other people, the faculty, through whom I got to learn a lot of things throughout my journey, and which I could implement over time. But yeah, again, coming back to my professional career at the moment and back at NITW, I did probably a couple of internships. One was in the field of marketing after my second year. At that time, doing an internship in second year was the thing. Okay. Now it has become a very normal thing, as I understand right now. The trends are very normal, and likewise, when I talk about third years, doing an abroad internship was the thing back then. And we used to organize some really nice sessions as a part of Technical Association of Biotechnology, and we used to conduct some eventful sessions where seniors could share their experiences so that juniors can learn from them and probably grow in their careers, or probably apply for internships or anything that they may not be aware of. They used to learn those things from the seniors. So that's how I happened to apply for my internships, purely based on the exposure that I got from college in second year. And then I did my research internship in third year at NTU Singapore. That was very eventful. And then I had this choice to either go for research or probably get into or get placed at campus and take a campus placement. Or the other thing is I find a job myself outside the college, right? So basically I had these three options, but I always wanted to become an entrepreneur. And also there was this thing at the back of my head that I also wanted to become a business analyst or a data scientist. At that time, I think there are these companies like ZS Associates and also Mu Sigma who were hiring for these positions. And it was, they were very fascinated and taking jobs, and everyone wants to get into that role, especially people who come from biotechnology background. Okay, so even I was one of them. I wanted to become a data scientist or a business analyst. This was there. I did apply, and I did crack a few placements, but at the back of my head, this was there that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, wanted to start something of my own. So that was there right from the beginning, and that made me apply to Internshala, where I spent probably 6 months. There I learned a lot of things by working with the small team. I think now they have grown a lot more. And then I had the opportunity to work for CodeChef, and then I moved to Belgium for my master's in statistics, where as I said, I wanted to become a data scientist, right? So this thing was there right from my bachelor's. And then after that, I went on to work for CompuData, where I'm one of the founding team members, and then started my own venture here. And right now, I'm full-fledgedly working on DeFi. But before even getting there, why did I even start DeFi in the first place? Okay, probably Sanket, you can keep me check on the time if I'm spilling over. Just let me know.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to talk a little more about DeFi, right? We started DeFi with a vision to build data culture and democratize data science learning. I'll probably talk a little more extensively about it in a while. Basically, when I speak about data culture, right? Let's say, if you want to buy a house tomorrow, or if you or your parents want to buy a house, what we do is we end up looking at a bunch of parameters, right? Let's say, what is the age of the house? I mean, how old it is, and also probably what is the locality of the house. We also look at how many bedrooms are there, how many bathrooms are there, and we look at all these data points, and then arrive at a price estimation, and then eventually make a decision whether we would want to buy the house or not. So that's the decision that you take after considering these data points, right? And you want it to be meaningful, and you want it to be sustainable based on the investment that you make on the house. So similarly, this is a very, very small example where we end up using a lot of data points to be able to make a decision. And if you look at real world problems, right? Real world business cases or real world problems, there are a lot more data points that will be involved. And the decision, even when it comes to decision making, it also becomes complex. So that's where we would want to help and enable each and every individual and businesses to use data effectively and harness its power to make meaningful decisions. So that's the kind of data culture we want to build in each and every organization and individual, so that they can make meaningful decisions. And also, data scientist as a field, it's not just a data scientist thingy. I mean, technically anyone, even a biotechnologist can use data science to make effective decisions. A marketer can do, and anyone pretty much, like operations manager or a software developer, talk about any industry or any function, you have a use case of data science and AI. And I think it's everyone needs to acquaint themselves with these essential skills. So that's where we would want to democratize data science and AI education, so that anyone can come on to DeFi and learn data science seamlessly. So this is the purpose with which we started DeFi. But again, people ask why this, why should we, the person, we solve this problem, why not others? So that's an interesting question that I keep getting. And I usually talk a little more about my background, or my journey throughout. So basically, I was brought up with this school of thought that education is something that will stay with you forever, unlike any other materialistic things, right? Let's say money or objects, or maybe let's say fame, which may or may not stay with you, or can be stolen from you today or tomorrow. Okay, whereas education is something that will stay with you for life if you are practicing it. Okay. And also, my mom is a teacher and a single parent. She started teaching so that her kids could get proper education and make something impactful in this world and do something impactful. So this is the school of thought that she has brought us up, and that was inculcated right from my childhood. So that's where my passion for education has started, and it is something that is very close to my heart. And then, as I said, I had the opportunity to work with Intern Shala, which is impacting the careers of students. That's one of the reasons why I made a move to work for Intern Shala, which I didn't get at campus placement, nor it was not into the research aspect of things. That's a cautious call that I made. That okay, I want to work for Intern Shala because they are impacting students in this way, and probably I would also be a part of their journey to make an impact. And then further, I had the opportunity to build and I had the opportunity to work for CodeChef, where I had the opportunity to build and grow the community at CodeChef. Right now, they are having 2 million plus competitive programmers on their community, which is earlier a not-for-profit educational initiative of Directa, and now part of an academy. So that's how I spent a significant period of my my professional journey there. Close to 5 years I spent at CodeChef, building community and also growth aspects there. And again, coming to data science and technology, that is something that I was passionate right from my NITW days. And the passion for data science was there and that's what made me take up my master's in statistics. And also throughout my professional journey, I always used to be it running my marketing campaigns or community driven campaigns, whatever it is, I used to basically make most of my decisions that are data driven. We used to analyze those KPIs and performance indexes and all, and then based on that, we used to make decisions and also drive campaigns overall. And that's how my passion for community, for data science, technology, and also for education that gave rise to DeFi, where it was the perfect blend, where I wanted to do something impactful in the field of data science and machine learning. Again, it all starts with basic education, right? If you are able to solve the problem of basic education, then that itself will take care of the rest. So that's where we wanted to create that ecosystem that will allow individuals and businesses to utilize the data science essentials that we provide and make something impactful with the help of data, so that they can harness its power. So that's some context of my journey. And probably if anyone has any questions or anything, we'll be happy to address. Sanket, yeah, it's over to you now. Yeah, I hope I didn't
No, we were into time. Thanks a lot, Sanuke, for sharing your journey and experience with us. I think we'll move to our second speaker, that is Subi, and then we'll have a question and answer session later on. So, Subi, can you please share your journey with us?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Sanket, and thank you so much, entire team, for putting out a lot of hard work. And I'm honored to be here sharing about my journey. So, Sanket, I would like to present my screen. I prepared a short presentation to keep in mind the points.
Sure.
So I hope it's visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah. So starting talking about my journey at NIT Warangal. So here I would like to mention what academic internships I have followed throughout the years. So after first year, I got a chance to have internship at NIT Nagpur Biochemistry Department. Since I am from Nagpur, and after first year, generally, not many people will have that much experience about your specific branch. Because from second year starts, so I personally approached NIT Nagpur professor and asked him if there is any vacancy for me to work beside any PhD graduate, to just to see how what is the day in their life looks like. After second year, I went to Niri, since again I'm from Nagpur, just to see any opportunity available, and I got a chance to work as a research associate. So during that time, after completing my 12th, I thought that okay, I would pursue research in biotechnology. For that aspect, I wanted to explore like what different work people do in research. So for that sake, I thought to explore this opportunity via internship. But after third year, I thought that I probably have to explore other domains as well, because research might not be something which the core research might not be something which could interest me or which I could do good in. After third year, IB Hubs, it's a startup and it came for internship placements specifically for biotechnology in college, and I was so happy to have that opportunity. I applied for it, and then I got a position of research analyst, where I worked on analyzing entrepreneurship ecosystem in the field of healthcare and life sciences. So while doing that internship, I was so happy that okay, I am enjoying this work, and the collaboration, the combination of business aspect plus healthcare and life sciences, something which is exciting me, which is making me passionate about that field. So instead of pursuing core research, just because I was able to make the decision, because I have started thinking about it from first year itself, I explored it, but I then thought that it's not working. I expanded my domain, and then I thought that the combination of both is something I want to pursue. Then again, fourth year, amidst all the placement and all, a lot of thought is coming that okay, everyone is getting placed. You some sort of start getting the pressure that okay, now I need to make the decision. And then I decided that if I have to make the decision at this moment, that if I want to pursue higher studies, or I have to look for something which could make me keep me working in that domain. So I decided to choose a combination of biotech knowledge and the business strategy. And for my fortune, Orbis Medical Business Solution, they came for the placement, and then I decided to apply and got an offer for the role of business strategy consultant. And there I worked on projects to consult medtech clients like Johnson Johnson. So it was an amalgamation of learning about the business and also consulting the medtech firms. So both my knowledge of biotech and the role I was looking for, it was there. But working in Orbis, I realized that after a duration, the growth was becoming stagnant. And at that moment, an opportunity came my way to be the co-founder with my colleagues. So currently, I am the co-founder of Sortizy with my colleagues. We all three used to work in Orbis, and then we decided to take our venture, give it a life form. But it was a very, very difficult decision at that moment, because I had to decide if I should leave a stable job and explore entrepreneurship. And I chose the later, and I'm proud of the decision till date. So now I would like to talk about two things I have learned so far, and I would love to share those. So always remember these two things: proactivity and resourcefulness. No matter what you are pursuing at this moment, no matter what you are going to pursue in future, either if you are studying in college, pursuing higher studies, you are an entrepreneur, you are working in corporate job, these two matters a lot. So basically the proactivity is the initiation, how much proactive you are to introspect about your own choices, how much open you are to explore what you would like. pursuing internship or courses. And proactivity is not enough. Sometimes it's not up to you to figure out everything. You have to reach out and make use of your resources in terms of networks. So people, your connections are very, very good resources. You have your very smart colleagues, and we are at such a privileged position to study in NIT Warangal. We have so talented colleagues, so many alumni, professors. So if we are figuring out at every moment of our life, you have to be proactive about what you want to do. You have to take initiations. At the same time, you need guidance. So these two words helped me like since the beginning. And now talking about my present role. So since I am the co-founder, and we are incubated by IIT Hyderabad and MEITI, it's been almost 1 year, and it has been a very interesting journey full of roller coasters. What to expect from this position? That you have to be a risk taker. You have to be ready to hustle if you would like to have your own your own venture. You have to have your own company. You have to have that leadership quality, and of course, you will develop all those qualities over time. But there are certain things that you have to be ready to get into it with courage. You have to take initiation. You should not wait for the right moment that it will come and I'll think about it. By that time, let me be in my comfort zone, and then just have that attitude to make it happen. At the same time, not just a professional growth, you have to be very much mindful about your self growth as well. That you have to grow as a person. And then talking about the workload. So I would be very honest, straightforward. In the initial time, it's the work-life balance is not good. You have to you will go to heavy workload. Eventually, you have to be on your own boss. You define your own day, how it looks like, what are the work settings, how like at what timings you want to work. So it's like everything is dependent upon you, because you are responsible for making that thing happen. And then throughout this journey, what impact this experience has made on my professional growth? That I am still improving, but it has helped me improve communication, stakeholder management, and I have seen all the work streams. I have got into all, talking about tech, product development, product management, design, legalities, data analytics, and whatnot. So when they say that in entrepreneurship, learning curve is good, so I must say that yes, learning curve is insane. And talking about, as I mentioned, that you should not forget about your personal growth as well. So impact of this experience for my personal growth as well is huge. I am being very much optimistic. I learned how to have persistence, patience. You have to be self-motivated all the time. You learn how to do a lot of hard work, because you take that job, it's your work. You have to make it happen. And over the last 1 year, I have thought of literally giving up for more than 10 times, but I'm like still continuing to hustle. So that kind of attitude is helpful, I must say. And then I'll quickly cover up the potential next positions as well. So I have like given a thought about it as well. So entrepreneurship has given me an upper edge to learn the business and strategy aspect. And a combination of this with my background and interest in biotechnology has opened a lot of unique doors. So this is my preference. Your preference could be something else. That I am genuinely interested in healthcare, life sciences, medtech. So the amalgamation of my business knowledge with entrepreneurship, and in combination with my background of biotechnology, is definitely a very unique opportunity for me. So there are multiple points I've mentioned what in future I could pursue. So it could be like serial entrepreneurship in medtech, healthcare, or life sciences. You could choose any domain. It could be edtech, deep tech, AI, agri, SaaS, e-commerce, or anything. Next thing is nowadays many universities are coming up and offering, this interesting course, Masters in Business Administration, Masters in Healthcare Administration. I wrote it wrong. So a course offered by many good universities in the US, and also ISB has recently started this advanced management program for healthcare. So basically, they offer, develop business acumen and adopt an integrative approach toward decision making, and acquire an understanding of the healthcare ecosystem. So if you want to stay between the business and the healthcare aspect, so there are many interesting courses coming up which we can pursue. Then, of course, work as a strategy consultant. So in Orbis, I was a strategy consultant in MedTech. I can continue working for that. And also I can join a healthcare startup to handle the business strategy and biz dev work stream for them. And I came across some questions which the team has shared. So the first question was key lessons I would like to share with others who want to establish their own company. So anyone who asks me this, and I just say that you should not wait for the right moment. You just have to have that, proactive approach. Just go get into the mud and make it happen. If you're waiting, I've seen many of my friends talking about the startups and many of my juniors, and they are talking like last from 2 years that, okay, I have an idea. Should I work for it? What should I do? But I did not see them taking the initiation. So if they are waiting, they'll wait it, like they'll keep on waiting. So you have to just get into it and just make it happen. Second is my suggestion to a student for utilizing their time in the current pandemic if they are not interested in biotech. So this is the case with many of us, who have taken biotech. So I would say start with a basic hypothesis of your interests. If you could come up with, even without that, shortlist some domains you would want to explore. So I'm sure you could like at least figure out that, okay, what I should not pursue, what I'm not interested in, and what I can pursue. And then try out internships in a startup. So since now I'm working in a startup, I know there are many startups in all the domain. They are looking for college students. You can join the team. These teams are small. You'll get more responsibility. You will get an entire understanding of what that domain is. Then you should definitely learn courses. Start with the basic course. Probably you can pick Excel. There are macros. There are so many other tools. You can pick one and start learning all that. I'm sure they are going to be very useful in any sector you're working. PPT making, these skill sets are very important. Then you can learn basic coding, you can learn UI design, you can learn case studies and guesstimates if you're interested in consulting. And then the third question, that what were my extracurricular activities? So I was a part of a lot of associations, Biotech Association, TAB, then Painting Club and Music Club. I participated in fests and participated in events. I'm not sure how because of the current pandemic, activities are going on in the college, but it's up to you how much you would want to participate. And lastly, my decision to pursue entrepreneurship and if my background in biotech helped. So basically, I always jot it down like a story. So all these, I think connect the events that, okay, I started with a hypothesis that I want to pursue, research. I tried it out via internships. And then I thought, no, I would like to, combine it with a business angle. Then I got that internship. So for me, it's flowing like a story or the way I present it. So of course, all the events are connected back to the decisions I've made before. Biotechnology has definitely helped me get into Orbis Medical, where I got an opportunity to work as a co-founder. So it was not a one-day decision. It has evolved over the years. So the most important thing is to be mindful about your choices, your interests. And as I said, please remember these, to be proactive and utilize your resources, talk to your colleagues, talk to your alums, and just make it happen. So yeah, here I'm done. Back to you, Sanket.
Thanks, Urbi. I would say you had a diverse journey starting from, research in biotech to being a co-founder of Sortizy.
Right.
Thanks a lot for sharing your experience and as well as giving tips to us. I think now we can move to the question and answer session and we can have a, discussion towards it. So if anyone wants to ask any question, just put it in the chat box or you can, raise your hand using the reactions option. So we can unmute you and you can ask the question. So there's one question from Nandini. So what all goes on between making a startup idea into a startup and how do you go about materializing your ideas? So I think, Surbi, you can answer this.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Nandini. So it's a very, very interesting question. So last 1 year, I have seen, things developing from zero to a certain stage. And as you're asking what all goes behind it, so in the background, there is a lot of, I can give lectures to a lot of work streams I have seen. And in each work stream, we have faced a lot of challenges. So, every other day you are getting up and you're not sure that how your day is going to look like. And then with each challenge, you have to figure out by your own with your team And the only factor is what is the difference between zero to that end product is not giving up. There are many opportunities you will get that, okay, no, it's not happening today, I should just get done with it. If you're not giving up, eventually it's going to happen. So I think, do you want to should I talk about more technicalities, or did I answer your questions?
No, a little more technical. Like, how do you go about getting, for example, investors or
Okay,
making
yeah. So
this?
yeah, can you make it more specific, because there are a lot of work streams. So if I can get one stream from you, what is your specific?
I honestly don't know anything. Like, for example, today I have an idea and I want to make it work. How do I start from absolutely zero? What steps are there?
Okay, sure. So once you come up with an idea, you have to check a basic feasibility of the idea in terms of, how much your market is. Is there any current demand in the market? And then you go about your, like, done with, okay, fine, this idea seems feasible. It is going to have good adoption in the market. People are going to, take it. Then you move forward to business model canvas. Now you do a lot of, extensive research about understanding all the parts of business model canvas. You can Google. It's a simple template. It talks about who are your customers, what are your marketing channels, and how you're going to get revenue. So once you figure out all the elements of business model canvas, then you start thinking about making a prototype or even conducting a pilot. So conducting a pilot is important to, you have that hypothesis that, okay, people are going to take it, but you have to actually do it and get the data. That is, are people ready for it? Are you targeting the right customer? So pilot is nothing but a small prototype you're developing just to test a small market to prove your hypothesis is right. So once you are, it could be in any form, like it could be a Google survey or Google forms, you're talking to your friends, you are conducting primary interviews. Then once you are past that stage as well, then you think about developing that first minimum viable product. So minimum viable product depends on the idea. For us, it's an application, it's a mobile application. It could be a physical end product. It could be anything. Then you think about, okay, what all minimum features I should put in that, minimum viable product. And also with all this journey, you have to figure out, you have to look for people. You cannot be, I mean, it's very difficult to be a lone player. So you have to look for co-founders who have, similar vision about your idea. You have to look for people. Then in our case, since we are not with tech background, we had to search for our chief technology officer, CTO. And dheere dheere you figure out whatever roles you require, what human resources you need. So once you're done with MVP, then you conduct more, send it into the market. Then once you get traction, simultaneously you work for the legalities, registering about the company, deciding the trademark, logo, and then you have to go for investor relationships as well. So it's not like today I am coming up with traction and tomorrow I'm getting the funding. You have to maintain relationship with investors for 4 to 5 months, and then you have to show them that my product is worth it, my team is good, and then eventually after showing all that, you get the funding. And also for us, we there are so many government grants, there are so many incubation centers, accelerators available. So if you are like well prepared with your pitch deck, with your co-founder, if you are clear about your business and you're applying, you will get initial grant, initial money to develop your MVP. So
yeah, I think nice to know that, Surbhi. So just to add some context here, right, Nandini, like, and I'll probably quickly share my screen so that you understand. I think, like, I'll probably take you through some fundamentals. Let's say, like, it all starts with solving a particular problem, right? You need to identify a problem in the industry in the first place. Okay, what is the problem that you would want to solve in the first place? Okay, I'm not even getting to the vision. I think, like, it will you keep thinking about a particular idea or a problem, and then you will gradually end up coming with your vision statement after a few months of practice, or like a few months of experimentation and bunch of other things. So first and foremost is, like, you need to identify a problem that you would want to solve. Let's say, like, if I have to take an example in our case, right, in the case of DeFi. So what we saw is, like, everyone were talking about very nicely about AI. Everyone says that AI is the new electricity, data is the new oil and everything. But at the same time, when we look at the industry, right, I myself experienced a lot of challenges out there. And I saw that more than 85% of the data science projects don't impact businesses at all. Okay, that's where we try to understand the problem a lot more, and then we arrived at okay, there is a lack of awareness of data culture or data science practices in organizations, and also there is a growing demand in the industry about AI innovation. And also when we look at the talent, right, there is a huge gap in between the industry and also the academia, I mean, in terms of skills and everything. So that's the problem that we identified, and then you start looking for solution. Okay, now you have this problem that you would want to solve, you know why you want to solve, and then you arrive at a solution for it. Okay, the solution can be, again, coming to the problem, right, to identifying the problem, as well as Surabhi mentioned, you can run some surveys. How do we even get to these problem statements, right? I mean, arrive at these problems. We spoke to a lot of data scientists out there. When I say data scientists, they can be chief data scientists, lead data scientists, and also we spoke to a lot of AI companies, a lot of technology companies like Google, Facebook, or whatnot. I mean, we spoke to all of them and then arrived that, okay, this is the problem that is there in the market. Okay, initially, we have this intuition that, okay, this is the problem that we saw, but is it existing in the market? Is it just we who are facing this problem, or is it a lot of people who are facing this problem? That is where you validate your problem. Okay, you validate, and after that you come at a solution that, hey, I mean, yes, there is a problem and we want to solve it. And that's where you would want to create an ecosystem empowering everyone with data science and AI essentials. Now that you arrive at a solution, you need to have a starting point, right? Somewhere you need to start. We won't arrive at the solution on day one. You start very small. That's where we started. I mean, just to give you an example so that you know how the entire sequence of steps work, we started conducting an online boot camp. Okay, a 5-week online boot camp with the help of industry experts and speakers, and then initially our hypothesis was that we would end up getting some 300 learners out of this exercise. But then when we went ahead and started marketing it, we ended up getting 3,000 learners. So it also depends on the kind of efforts that you put in the entire sequence of events and how much committed you are to grow this initiative. So you don't get, I mean, you're not born talented, right? You would probably grow as a kid, and then probably after that, you become big. So similarly, it all starts small. When we start, probably in the case of DeFi, right? When we started as a very, very small blog, okay, which I'll probably show. I mean, this is how we started DeFi, with a small blog, with a Google form and all. And then after that, we identified, okay, there are different other things that we can solve. And we started building a platform where people can learn from, we have automated a lot of things. So it will happen, there will be a gradual growth in the entire sequence of events. But to give you a little more context, this is how it goes on, where you identify a problem and then you start solving it. And then in the eventual run of things, you end up building a lot more things based on the demand and based on the research that you would do in the overall sequence of things. But yeah, that's some context of how you go. And again, coming to investors, right? Once you have validated and once you have enough users and when you have validated, that's when you go to the investment and then pitch. Okay, so again, that depends on a lot of other things. But yeah, I think we have taken a lot of time on this. I hope that addresses your question, right, Nandini?
Yeah, that
yes.
was a very nice, elaborate answer from both of you. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot. And probably we'll move to the next question. I think there are two more by Jalak and Jalak Bansal and Chandan Maurya. I'll probably read it out so that everyone knows what the question is. Do you think that a professional degree is required for entrepreneurship? There are a lot of B schools that offer courses for the same. What is your opinion, being an entrepreneur yourself? Okay, if just to give an overview, I mean, you don't need a professional degree in entrepreneurship to run a business or to become an entrepreneur. I think we have enough examples out there. If we talk about the founder of Oyo, I mean, he didn't even have a degree, right? And if we talk about a bunch of other founders out there, in the current startup ecosystem in India, I mean, most of them, they don't even hold MBA degrees. Most of them are techies or like, just out of their bachelors, and they have run what they have been running. And I'm sure like, same is the case with Surabhi, and even I don't have a professional degree in entrepreneurship. So you don't necessarily need that, but yes, I mean, like, the experiences that you would have with individuals and with organizations that you work definitely matter, and it can help you in a very, very long run. But that's in a nutshell. But Surabhi, if you have any thing to add, please feel free to.
Yeah, Chanukya, so I would like to add, since you're much experienced than me, so please tell me if I'm right that if you're having like more, work experience, or if you have a professional degree, you would have access to a lot of networks. You have people, you have experience. So I personally think that my experience in, working in a corporate for 2 years, it gave me an upper edge to understand the organizational structure, basic skill sets of how like starting from making a PPT and understanding different structure of an organization. So I think it would give you an upper edge. So what do you think? Like, since you have been in the industry from so long.
Yeah, it might give some upper edge. Definitely, like, if you are having a degree, then probably you will get that network access, right? Like, for example, we are in NIT Warangal. If you want to leverage, I mean, like, we can leverage the alumni network. So it solely depends. But at the same time, if you don't have a network, there are different ways. I mean, I have seen people like, who come from nowhere and like, made some really, really impactful stuff. I mean, it all depends on the intent, right? If your intent is right, and if you want to make something really impactful, you'll figure out ways. But yes, definitely there will be an edge. But that doesn't mean that like, you can't do it. So if you ask me, is it required? No, it's not required. But does it help? Yes, it will help. Yeah. So that's how I look at things. But I totally agree on this aspect that it will definitely help people. But again, it's not a standard requirement. Yeah. And yeah, I think yeah, that's something. And probably like, we'll
Just
move on
one
to
more
the,
question from Chandan.
yeah. Yeah,
Sure,
please,
go on,
go ahead.
please.
Yeah.
There's another question from Chandan. As a co-founder or founder of a company, how are you managing the team and making sure they are sharing the same vision?
Right. Yeah. This is probably an interesting question. And yeah. So I think, I mean, like, definitely, like, it's not just you who will run a organization, right? You need to have a very great team who would echo the same thing that you have for the product or for the company that you are running, right? So definitely that's very critical. And to be honest, I as an individual, or I and my co-founder as two individuals, may not grow the startup to a great scale. We need to collaborate. We need to collaborate with like-minded people. And that's where I think most of the early stage startups face a lot of difficulty in growing the team. And touchwood, like, we were fortunate enough to get that team who always are like, passionate about two things mainly. One is to create an impact and make a difference. So these are like, sometimes we always go for those individuals who have a strong will or great skill. Okay, even if they have moderate skill, we would still hire because they have a strong commitment, strong will to make something impactful. Because if they have that strong will, we are pretty sure that like, if we groom them well, they will eventually learn and they will gain that skill and do something impactful. So that is a strategy that we generally follow. But again, it may not be the true with all the cases. I mean, I can't make a blanket statement there. Yes, I mean, like, so just to give you some example, like, I was hiring a UI UX designer. We wanted to hire a UI UX designer, and we were struggling for 3 long months. And after that, like, we eventually hired 2. And now, like, we are really having a great journey working with them. Same with like, any other hires that I have made in the past. I mean, we used to spend a lot of time in terms of interviewing hundreds of candidates, but we wanted to ensure that it's all right to, I mean, we don't want to hire someone like, who doesn't align with the vision or who doesn't totally believe in the product. And it takes a lot to, understand whether a particular candidate is right or not. And again, like, you end up failing a lot of times. I mean, we made especially at DeFi, like, we didn't make a bad hire, but in my previous experiences, like, I ended up making a lot of hires, which may not be compatible to the company. At the same time, I don't say that, like, those hires are not, like, not resourceful anywhere else. It's just that, like, there is not a a good match between this particular organization and that particular individual. And to be honest, like, that particular individual can make a huge impact at anywhere else. So that's something that I wanted to add. And one thing is clear, where, like, as human beings, right, we always need to go with this one particular thing, that is that we always need to create an impact proportional to our potential. And that is something that comes as a moral obligation, and that's something that I have learned from my ex-CEO. Okay, so that's something that we constantly look for in individuals, and we constantly say that, hey, I mean, if you're not believing in what you're doing, then obviously, you won't be able to create an impact proportional to your potential. Probably, you need to look for those elements, or look for those organizations where you can, justify your talent, and create something really meaningful that is proportional to your talent. So that's what we keep empowering the talent to overall. But that's some context on the high level scheme of things. But yeah, Surabhi, you might want to add something there.
Yeah, so more or less, Chanukya, you have covered the major points. But being in an early stage startup, over the last 1 year, we have faced a lot of difficulties of getting the right people. Since we are in the early stages, it's even more difficult for people to just jump in, because they are also they know that we are also figuring out stuff, and we are in need of them to fix that piece in the puzzle. So, but we have been fortunate that the most important channel for us was referral. It has some sort of trust established among people that, okay, I know this person, and then they bought another person, and that's how we sort of build the team. So referrals has worked really good for us so far. And then we have been really fortunate to bring people whom we were able to convince for the vision, and they are working for that mission, and they have joined the team. So I think that's we have covered the question. So I think we have another question. Uh, did you guys leave your full-time job for your startup from the beginning itself? How did you manage time between both current job and startup at the initial stages? Chanukya, if you'd like to go first, or should I
No, go ahead. You go ahead, and then I'll probably address. Yeah.
So my journey, in Orbis, I some sort of I was working in a project, and it was over 4 months, and I could see that no, I was started having stagnate growth, and at that moment I got an opportunity. My colleagues, we used to discuss about this problem, and we thought of doing something about it. And then one of my co-founders started to take that initiation, and then he offered me to come and jump in full time, and I thought it's a very amazing responsibility, and I should grab it right away. I should not wait for the right moment. So then I've heard that you should start a startup dedicatedly. Don't start it half-heartedly. It's not gonna yield you a lot of efforts. So I quit Orbis and I jump into the startup from day one full time, and then slowly we are seeing the things shaping up. So for me, this is how it worked. Chanukya, what is your journey?
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on what initial stages exactly. So that's a tricky question. So if you categorize initial stages as 6 months or 7 months, then yes, I mean, I did quit my job and then did it. But again, in hindsight, I mean, if I have to talk about my journey, then DeFi started back in May. And we didn't really, I mean, at that time I was also associated with Complidata, and I informed Complidata that yes, I mean, I'm working on something like this. And Complidata also, I'm the founding team member there, so it's like both are like my babies. So it didn't really make much difference there. But then I eventually moved out, and in December, and I'm working full time right now. It's been 6-7 months that we have been onto this journey, and we want to scale it up from here on. But yeah, that's some context from my end.
Right.
Okay, how do you manage time between both? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't address that, right? Yeah, it's really difficult to strike that balance, to be honest. Again, you have 24 hours in a day, and you're still young, so you can stretch till 16-17 hours a day if you want to do both the things in parallel. So that's always an option. And I think I would strongly recommend someone to go for that commitment if they can. Yeah.
I think Krishna, you have a question. If you can please unmute and ask.
Thanks both for a really interesting talk. This is really different from what I have been doing for the last years, and I was super interested. I have a question for Surbi. So when did you, like, you started from day one, you quit your job, but when did you go from one person to a team, and like, was it unpaid collaboration, like on a collaboration basis, or did you already started to pay the people, or how does it work actually?
So hi Krishna. To answer to your question, I would like to start from the time then we started working on the idea. We explored a lot of the government grants and the incubation centers, and we approached them. We went to IIT Hyderabad and we received an initial grant to develop our prototype. So that gave us an upper hand to pay the initial people, because when you are not having any product, you have to look out for a team and you have to pay certain amount. So we approached in three different kinds of collaboration. The first one is as a core team members. So these members are the ones who are believing in the vision, who are believing in the idea, and they came on board. So we need not to pay anything. They are traveling in the journey with us since the beginning. The second is a project basis kind of thing, that we are bringing someone very experienced in any domain, probably a backend developer or a front end developer. So for that, we have to allocate some major funds and we paid them right away. And the third part of collaboration is the interns. So these are the people who are very, very resourceful. They want to learn, and you need not to pay a lot of amount to them. They would come for the experience, for the certificate, and for the learning purpose. So we approach and that grant which we received, and there are a lot of grants available which we can utilize them and pursue these three kinds of collaborations and build a team.
Thanks. Just a follow up for the grants, is there like, do you have to deliver something in the end, or like some kind of payback, or how does, like, for the one, especially for the one that you got?
So we received it from IIT Hyderabad, in collaboration with Ministry of Electronics and IT. We told them about the idea, and they said that the runway of the grant will be for 12 months, and they release in tranches. Like after showing the output for 3 months, they will release the next tranche. So based on the milestones you are showing them for the next 3 months, and then you're achieving that, they release the tranches in that manner. So they don't nudge a lot about what you're doing, unlike investors. So they are like really friendly, like just like incubators, they guide you, they ask you what you need, and they did not ask us any equity. So it's working really well for us.
Chanukya, one quick question to you. How difficult was it to establish a startup in Belgium as compared to in India?
Okay, in India, I didn't establish a startup. I'm just establishing a subsidiary now. But again, establishing a startup in Belgium was definitely difficult. One is the language was different, so I had to figure out a lot of legal stuff. It took us good 3-4 months to understand, to talk to a lot of lawyers, and it's expensive as well, right? And we are not generating any revenue, or we are not paying others anything, and it's super expensive. So overall, it was really, really difficult. And the other thing is, you don't. Since the language difference is also there, it makes things a little more complex. And now I'm establishing a startup. Basically the subsidiary of the company in India, and that's there again. It's again a lot more complex than if I were in India. So we are trying to overcome the challenges right now. So it's not very cakewalk, I would say. But as I understand, establishing a company in India is pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Okay. Guys, I think we are running out of time, so we will continue our discussion in the breakout session for sure. Chanukya and Surbi, thanks a lot for sharing your wonderful journeys with us and answering our questions also. You surely cleared a lot of our doubts, and I think your advice will definitely help us in future.